Hey everyone, welcome to the Do the Thing podcast. This is your host, Stacey Lauren. So, okay guys, this is cool. we did the dating panel episode last week, and Adam Weber, who is pretty famous on the Do the Thing podcast because he not only was interview number one, but he also was, he also is the person that has created the platform that my podcast is built on. He has agreed to come on again today to talk about the dare that he gave you guys, because I was so intrigued by what he said, and I just thought it was such a good idea that I wanted to talk about it a little bit more so people understood how easy it was to do what he was suggesting. So I'm bringing Adam on so we could talk more about it. Hey, Adam.
Brilliant. Hi, Stacey. It's so exciting. I love these calls that we've been having now, and what an amazing community of people you've kind of been bringing together through your podcast. I'm excited to have this call with you and explore some ideas.
Yeah, and it's so cool. I love everything about this because I know when I first asked you to be on the panel for the dating challenge, you were like, why would I be on the panel for the dating challenge? And I was explaining how important it was from the fear side of things. And then you totally got it, and then the value that you brought to the panel was so extraordinary that it just felt like this moment of just everything being aligned all in the right place. And then the funny thing was, when we were talking this weekend, we were texting and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have you come on, explain the dare a little bit more. And we were going to do a pre-call to talk about it more. And then we just decided, you know what, let's just do it. So we're doing the true do the thing fashion right now by actually just real time. We're talking about the challenge as we're creating it, essentially.
Yeah. I love this, and I love everything about your podcast as well, in terms of inspiring people to just jump in, especially when you are sensing you're afraid of something. Maybe that's the thing you need to jump into and just go for it. And I've watched you now do that with this podcast. Also, it's a great way to unlock, as you are figuring out or wrestling with something, unlock a path forward. And what I'm thinking about when I say that is your book, right? You were wanting to write a book. And as you're trying to figure out, well, how does that work? You decide, you know what? I'll just jump in and do this podcast, that do the thing, and interview people who have achieved success and challenged themselves and taken risks or faced their fears. And so, I just kind of love everything about your podcast, your topic. And then also, one of the strengths of doing it this way with a podcast is the ability to expand yourself, open your world, meet new people. And as you are, instead of just kind of hiding away in your room and worrying about, how do I write a book, or how do I get myself out there more? It opens you up and it forces you to say, you know what, I'm going to set up a call with somebody and ask them their advice or explore ideas with them. And it just kind of continues to make your world grow larger, and then opportunities kind of spring forth from that. So I think part of the challenge that I presented on your last podcast call was born out of my own 365 podcast challenge, right? And instead of which is where I did 365 podcasts, one every single day of the year with one new person. And the idea that anybody could do this, but maybe, shorten the challenge to maybe just 1 week or 10 days. We initially said 10 days, but even if it's just, I'm going to take 1 week of my life, 7 podcasts, and try to do one a day with a new person. Maybe there's something in there that could unlock something for somebody in terms of pushing yourself out in the world, challenging yourself to, get out there and meet people and try something new. But I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on what the podcast has done for you in terms of your ambitions, goals, and what have you gotten out of it?
Yeah. And just to remind everyone, and for those of you that didn't listen to the episode yet for the dating panel, basically Adam said, my dare to you guys, as you're going on this dating challenge, is to basically start a podcast, record I can't remember if it was 7 or 10 interviews, but we were talking, it sounds like a week is probably a better framework for people to be able to do it. However, you guys do whatever feels right to you. Pick your own number. It doesn't have to be 7 days. It could be whatever feels good. And for me, and oh, sorry. And the thing that I loved about it when I thought about it after the episode was over is, oh my gosh, I'm like, it gives you a reason to be out of your environment. It gives you a reason to talk to people, because there's some people, it is so hard to go anywhere, like physically, to get up out of your comfort of your own home. And if you watch TV or movies or read books or whatever you guys do on your computer, social media, we have all these entrapments around us, and it's so easy to get stuck in that. But when you have a reason, like, oh, I accepted this dare, I'm going to take it, it gives you a reason to talk to people. And so that's what I really loved about this. And we're talking about it specific to the dating challenge, but honestly, I think this is a fantastic dare for everyone, because for me personally, I've gotten so much out of this podcast. It's been, I think it's been like 3 months now. And just through these interviews that I've been talking to people, I'm learning so much from them. And it's, number one, they feel good after the interview. I'm getting a huge amount of like gratitude from them. Like one of my old friends that I had interviewed last week, and I just published his, he was just saying how much his mom loved it and how much he appreciated, like being able to be featured on my podcast. And I think that's one thing that I really love about it, is just the honoring of the person, And then the other thing is I'm learning, because I am for me and my interest of the podcast, I'm dissecting a formula of how people do the thing. And so since I'm learning how they do the thing, it's getting me to like more pointedly see how to do the thing. And so I just recently started a fitness journey where I'm like, I just hired a coach to help. And I didn't even, because that's number one thing that people do to do the thing, is hiring a coach. And I'm like, why wouldn't I do that in my personal fitness? I'm only doing it for business. So I got that out of the podcast, where I'm starting to like connect these lines together. This is how I do the thing in business. This is how you could do the thing with everything, you do, is you kind of keep that same formula going. And so through the interviews, they actually give me energy. I feel just like after it's over, I just feel like I'm alive, because I'm able to just like talk to someone in even a deeper way. I even interviewed my boyfriend like a few weeks ago, and we've been together a year and a half, and I've been trying to like figure out how he's so good at being able to follow through on the things he says he wants to do for himself without any accountability. And I've tried to get the answers through like just our normal relationship. But through the podcast, I was finally able to like figure it out, because there's something about being able to interview someone, in a way of just asking questions that gets you to get there even deeper. And so anyway, there's so much that for me personally that I've gotten out of it. And the thing that I'm excited about with us encouraging other people to do a podcast is do whatever you're interested in. Do you want to do it on, and maybe let's talk about that for a minute. Like let's shitstorm. That is not even a word, but like, let's go through some just ideas of like, what are you interested in? Do you want to talk about dating? Do you want to talk about like working out? Do you want to talk about diving? Do you want to talk about surfing? Like, what is your interest level? Because I think that's what I love so much about me doing my podcast, is I am fascinated by how people do the thing. So I get so excited when I have an interview and then after, because I'm like learning this thing that means so much to me. And so, yeah, so maybe we could talk about that a little bit too.
Wow. You just said so many really interesting and important things, I think. And so I just want to touch on a couple of them.
Yeah, I love it.
And actually, a lot of our group call the other day focused on some of these important points that you just made, that I'm going to run through, because I think when it comes to dating, so much of it is self-work and self-care first and foremost, right? We don't want to be putting ourselves out there unless we have done the necessary taking the work for ourselves to become the best, healthiest version of ourselves. One of the interesting things that I think you just mentioned, that I completely relate to, is the energy you get, specifically after you've wrapped your podcast. Right. A lot of times pre-podcast, there can be, at least for me, there was kind of this internal worry or stress, or, oh my God, I'm about to put myself out there. And then you record and you have this amazing opportunity for 30 minutes, 45 minutes of really talking with somebody, listening to somebody, exchanging kind of thoughts with somebody. And then you hang up and you're like, wow, I did all that worrying for nothing. And that was such a powerful moment to really be able to connect with somebody else and hear their story and their ideas and their fears and their wins and their growth and their, all the kind of amazing fabric that makes up life and the connectivity. And I think in connectivity, I think humans are wired for connections, but yet so much of technology or just so much of the things we end up doing leave us, especially during the pandemic and as we kind of all retreated to our safety, of our homes and oh, is it scary to go out or whatever? Just we still need that connection, and having that ability to record and connect with somebody gives you that energy when you're done. And I remember feeling that like that surge of, oh my God, what an amazing connection I just had with another human. And that was really powerful and wonderful. And so using even this kind of podcasting opportunity. So if, as it relates back to your dating world and dating challenge, using it as a way to push yourself, do something that might feel a little scary, pushing yourself out there, even if you're just connecting with no one that has to do with the dating world, but as a way to push yourself into situations that feel, oh my God, I'm worried or scared. And then also as a way to build that energy force for yourself of, yes, I'm getting myself out there, or I'm talking or meeting or just practicing having that back and forth and conversations with new and different people and just building that muscle that. And then when you're done, I feel like, and I truly believe it gives you a little bit of that burst of, wow, I feel really good and charged up and positive. I'll go talk to more people. So I really love that idea and that kind of awareness of the energy that podcasting and connecting with people can give you. So that was the first point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think that's a great way to verbalize it for sure.
I love what you mentioned about, you celebrate and honor somebody else when you mention that, your guest feels special and kind of giving that gift. I think that's important. Accountability goes into, for me also, why I think it's important to pick a number. We talked about 10, we talked about 7 at the beginning, but pick a number, because so much of the time, if we don't have something to shoot for, it's easy to give up. It's easy to stop.
Yeah. And I wanted to add on that too, because that's what I did and it worked for me. And if you guys have followed the journey, you know this, but if you haven't and you're new to this today, I'll just re-explain it. Basically, Do the Thing is a book coming from a book that I'm writing, and I'm working with a book strategist who had told me, in order for it to be good, like I really need to explore the concepts more on the formula so I can get other people's thoughts on them and be able to expand them more. And man, was she right, because these pieces of the formula have been expanded so much. And she wanted me to do 10 interviews specifically. And then I basically was like, well, if I'm going to be interviewing 10 people, I'd much rather have it recorded in case this is something I ever want to publish. So I still hadn't committed to doing this as a podcast yet. I was doing it more to get these interviews, record them. And then when we connected, I just got so kind of thrown into, what you were building and then how easy it was that it got me to want to publish it. But honestly, I don't even think I published it until I had 20 episodes already because I was nervous. And that would be the other thing on this concept of doing 10, 7, whatever that number is for you. And I lost it. It's going to come back. What was it? 7
the accountability.
Yeah, is not getting stuck on having to even publish it yet. You could record it in the Callcast app, and then you could just decide, once you've done them all, what you want to do with it. And so that's really cool too, is you have so much flexibility, with that, is you don't have to say, oh, that's what finally got me to do the 10 on the podcast, is I'm like, I don't need to commit to anything long-term. And I'm still not committing to this podcast long-term. I mean, I'm doing it as long as it feels good, and right now I'm loving it. And it's just, it's bringing so much other things to me that I'm keeping on doing it, but I don't have I have to do this thing yet. And that's what I recommend. And that's why I like that you brought up the number, and then having that goal that you hit and deciding what the goal, and then see how you feel after that number's hit.
Yeah. I believe it's about building that muscle. And if we don't have something, to push us to keep going, or that, I made a, and that's why I think you doing these challenges with people, right? You talked about challenges, and when you accept and embrace a challenge, then you are more letting that guide you through it. And then when you get to the other side, you're like, wow, I don't know if I would have stuck it out if it wasn't for that challenge, or that, like I set a bar for myself and I was going to meet that bar.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up too, Adam, because we talked about this on the episode that we did together. And if you guys want to check it out, it's episode number 3, Adam Weber. And it was great because we talked about how we're both introverts, and you had the lens of the podcaster. I had sales as my thing that I was a lens of. And then I interviewed Deb Sherman, who was a really high-level investigative reporter. And she also talked about being an introvert, and she had the lens of a reporter. And it got you to do more than you would do without having that like specific lens. So I think that's another really good point, is it just kind of makes it easier, to be able to talk to people. And then let's say you decide not to have the podcast anymore, you've already flexed those muscles. So it's more natural for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, so much of the time we tell ourselves a story, and then that story becomes what we believe. And yet sometimes, and many times, through embracing a challenge like this, you get to shed parts of those stories that hold you back, because they might not be entirely true, right? Like we might feel more comfortable as introverts, but that doesn't mean put in the right setting, in the right place, or with the right like catalyst to spring us into something. You shed all that story or box that we put ourselves in, and it's like, oh wow, like I have no problem talking with somebody once the conversation is going, and once I find, we find this interesting sparks, and it just from there unfolds. But yet, if we don't have certain things that just kind of push us into the lens, or into the light to actually light up and shine, then we don't give ourselves that opportunity to really grow and show ourselves that we can be so much more than what we believed ourselves to be.
I love that. That's so good. So did you have, I think, because I interrupted you as you were going down that sheet, did you have anything else on there from what we were talking about earlier?
Well, the thing that I really loved that you said was, I think when you were interviewing your boyfriend, talking about questions and how podcasts and that opportunity of using podcasts to have a conversation lends itself to really just asking questions. And then through those questions, it gives us permission to explore ideas that we might not have opened up because for whatever reason, I was too scared to ask, or it felt awkward, or whatever that conversation may be. Maybe it's a career path, but you never knew how to ask somebody for mentorship or for advice, or for, how did you do this? Or how did you get there? How did you, and just being able to start to frame these conversations through an opportunity to ask questions. I feel like that's where we have growth opportunity.
And I think people can get paralyzed in those questions, because I remember I did there was like a 6-month period that I was decided I wanted to do like at least the 10 interviews, but then I got stuck in what questions am I going to ask? And I had a coach that I was working with that gave me all these questions. And then I had someone else that gave me all these questions that has done podcasts before. And then finally what came of it, the book strategist woman, she gave me like 4 questions that were good as like core ones. But then finally what came out, and then what I'm doing now is I'm like, what am I the most curious about this person? And that is literally like, so you don't even need a framework for questions anymore. You just need to look at this person as a human being and say, what do I really want to know? And how can I get the answer? And that's like literally what opens the door for all of this. And then you don't need to get in that analysis paralysis, because you're just talking to another human being,
Yeah, that's beautiful and brilliant. And I think as it relates back to your dating challenge for people, right? One, like, so we started out with tuning into and finding the things that energize you, excite you? Like, what are the activities and the spaces that really make you you and you thrive in, and just, and kind of like find those places and spaces and groups. One, two, opening up to asking questions, but in an authentic way. I think what you just hit on, where I wrote down, follow your curiosity. Like,
Oh,
let
perfect.
your curiosity
Yeah.
be the guide. And when you follow your curiosity and you follow the things that you are excited about, you're naturally going to find yourself around other people that I think there's just sparks there around, right? You're like out there in the world doing things that get you excited and interested. And then you're just letting it naturally, your curiosity about the other person and just the moments, I think, will lend themselves to breaking down the barriers of, oh my God, I'm too scared to put myself out there.
Totally. Yeah. And I thought we could take a few minutes and kind of go through, like, really, like, let's pretend like whoever's listening is 7, which they're not, but let's just pretend like a 7-year-old's listening to this. So step 1 in taking on this challenge of the podcast dare, starting your own podcast and doing 7 to 10 episodes, what would be step 1?
Okay. So let's think about this. How do you envision the podcast and dating working hand in hand? Do you see it as I'm looking to talk and connect with particularly someone I would want to date? Or do you look at it through the lens of, I just want to meet and talk with anybody and explore ideas and fields that push me out to new opportunities?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's going to be up to the person, because I love the second one, because I think it's amazing. I mean, I've been loving it just as an opportunity to be able to get to know people that I haven't met before, so it's expanding my network in such a beautiful way, that I've really loved. So, I mean, I like number 2, but I mean, someone else might say, oh, I only want to do this and talk to people that I'm interested in dating, So I think it really is going to be dependent on the person. But I think if we want to pick one, I would just say it gives you a reason to go out, because I'm like basically wanting to, like, my goal for the night could be, let me just mention that I have a podcast and talk to 3 people and see if they're interested in me interviewing them. And honestly, if it gets you to not, let's say you don't even ask someone to do the interview and you're just like naturally talking to them, oh, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Like, that's a great, the challenge has been, it's worked, right? Because it's just to get you out of your house. I was talking to someone the other day and she said, how am I going to meet my dream guy when I'm sitting on my couch? You know what I mean? Like, she's sitting there complaining about not meeting someone, and we're talking and I was telling her about the challenge. She's like, you're right. Like, how am I going to meet my dream guy if I'm sitting on the couch? Like, you're not, And so anyway, so number 1 for me, intention is getting the person out of their house. Number 2, giving yourself a certain number of people that you could talk to schedule an interview. Number 3, then doing that interview and seeing where it goes, basically, whether it's you have a new friend, someone in your business network, someone in your personal network, or maybe you've met a potential person. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess my brain was continuing to expand on that and thinking, so if the do the thing has the dating challenge, maybe even using the podcast as a reflective tool, because so much of this, it's really important. It's really important. Like, as we're growing, like, things are happening, and unless we take some time to reflect and think about and use to sharpen ourselves with, in terms of, okay, I like this, I didn't like that. A possibility, I could see is using the podcast to reflect on, okay, help me think in terms of the structure of the do the thing challenges. Is there going to be weekly challenges, monthly challenges, and maybe using a podcast as a way to catalog, connect with, and explore the different challenges you're going through, but then also make it public. And then people can be sharing the larger mission of do the thing, because it's like, okay, hey everyone, I am taking Stacey's do the thing challenges, and I will be, describing the different things I'm doing here on this podcast. I'll be interviewing the interesting people I'm meeting along the way on the journey, and just kind of exploring this adventure of all the challenges collectively that I'm going through as I'm putting myself out there and dating. And, here are the things I'll be learning about, exploring, even, getting coaches on. I'll interview coaches. I'll talk about the challenges as I go out and put myself out there, whether you give someone a challenge to listen, if you are afraid of something, we want you to do a paddleboard challenge. Everybody needs to go out and schedule a paddleboard or whatever. Here's a great person you can talk to, and come back, tell us what you felt before, and then do a check-in after.
Yeah, I mean, you just opened up a whole nother world, pretty much. And I think I actually shared, I did my first reflective, although I did my first first 2 episodes were reflective. And then, cause I wasn't brave enough yet to interview someone. And then this weekend I did a reflective one when I was doing the thing and driving a boat where I had just crashed a boat the last time that I drove it. And I got motivated. Actually, that's another thing that had inspired me from this podcast, because I interviewed someone on my mastermind who talked about crashing a bunch of boats, and now he has this huge sailboat. But for me, I put it in my head that I wasn't a good driver. So anyway, I shared this. At the time that this is posted, I'm sure that'll be published, but I went through this reflective thing on how I'm getting out there and doing the boat. So I think it'd be something as easy as that. And I love that, because now let's say someone's scared to ask someone to be on their podcast. They don't even have to do that. They can just go out and just basically meet people, do whatever they want. And then basically as they're driving home, even they could record on Callcast and say what happened and kind of go through some framework. And maybe I can give some reflective questions that they could answer themselves. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a really fun way to, push yourself, put yourself out there. The other beautiful thing that you just made me realize is that the more we put ourselves out there, the more we see the synchronicities of life, right? You were doing a boating thing, you had this fear from crashing your boat. And then all of a sudden I had messaged you, hey, here's someone who's just made some money off this boating idea thing, and that would, make an interesting podcast. And then you were like, I'm already scheduled to do this other boating thing, and then now interview this. It's and the metaphor of even what these kind of, going out on a voyage, or the metaphor of the whole boating experience in and of itself. And as that relates back to you and your own fears, but anybody also with the journey, there's so much in there that when you start to take the time to see how these different things connect and flow into your life, it's wow, look how things piece together. You start to pay attention to these synchronicities. It really kind of shows you how incredible the world can be when you do take the risks and put yourself out there and step up to challenges.
Oh yeah, I love that. I've been actually saying that a lot lately. It's I can finally see the messages the universe sends. I did with all the work I've done and stuff. Now I feel in such a more calm place, and so it's been amazing to be able to just open and expand your mind more. And I think also doing things and putting yourself out there, you're able to kind of feel it more. So you guys, now Adam and I are just going to talk more about how you could actually do this, because it all sounds great, I'm sure, but it's I'm sure a lot of people in their head, because this is how I was, is, oh my gosh, that sounds so complicated. It's going to take hours and all this stuff. And I can tell you, it's the easiest thing that you have ever done. It's almost like recording a voice note, and then you could publish it right then and there, or you can choose to edit it out a little bit. But it's just such a simple process. And then once you get it set up to, if you do decide to post your podcast, once you set it up once, it's a 5-minute process where you copy and paste your RSS feed. It's already done. So this is creating, people think that doing a podcast is the most insane, high level thing and so complicated. But the way that Adam set up Callcast, it is so simple. So to me, step one is picking what your topic would be. So it could either be these reflective episodes, which you wouldn't need to interview anyone. You're basically just talking freely how you would in your phone, basically. So that would be something you could do. Or if you did want to do interviews, and you don't have to pick one, you could do both like I'm doing, or you could also decide to interview people. And if you do it that way, I would just definitely pick something that you are crazy fascinated about and you are excited to talk about and you're excited to learn about, because that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I love this. So I'm even thinking about, and you and I can talk post call here on this, but we could set up a special page for Stacey's Do the Thing Dating Challenge and have a special page. And it could be like, podcast challenge number 1, and you could guide people through, like, here are some different challenges that will equate to like, a 7 or 10 day challenge, depending on how many you want to make it. Right. And people could go through each of those steps, and we could have a little guide on like, here's everything you need to do to get set up. But we give you, based off of the Do the Thing framework or whatever, it could be like, here, each of these has a reason why you're going to do it. Right. Is it scary to get an interview with somebody? Let's tackle that and challenge, number, 2. Maybe challenge number 1 is the reflective podcasting challenge. Let's set the framework for, who you are and what do you want in life? Where do you want to go? And let's talk about, what are your fears? What's holding you back? Get to know yourself better. And then number 2 could be, we could then, each step could be a different specific challenge to get people. So by the time they get to 7 or 10, it's like, wow, look at you now completed this challenge, and you now have started your podcast, but also faced these different things to help you along the way.
Yeah. And I love that idea. And actually, it's funny, I'm hearing your dog bark and I'm loving it, because I just realized, I'm like, you guys, like, this doesn't even need to be hard. You could literally have your podcast be about dog owners at a dog park. And you're like, if you wanted to do interviews. So I'm just trying to show examples. It doesn't have to be a huge, complicated thing. It could just be something as simple as, you go to the dog park, you're like, oh, your dog's so cool. I'm talking to dog owners about blah, 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 and it's like whatever you're interested in. But yeah, I love that idea of just making it like simple and giving these really clear-cut challenges, and kind of what you encouraged me to do when I started this podcast, which was, you told me, I remember, like, you're just like, flex the muscle, which was great, because that's the Do the Thing language, flex the muscle. Just post a couple episodes, see how it feels. And that was exactly what I did. My first 2 episodes were only like 5 minutes. And I remember the first one, I got so stuck on the sound because the sound wasn't good. And then you were the one that gave me the idea to do the intro, of that, and just explain why it sounds bad, kind of a thing. So yeah, I'm all up for that.
I would say to anyone, like, use this not as, I'm going to be a professional podcaster. Like, totally. This is your I'm going to just experiment and try something new and learn. And then if I really love it, then I'll figure out the expensive equipment. I'll figure out all the other stuff. This is just like a playground to experiment and be free and just kind of lighten all those kind of things that are stressing you out. This is just to experiment and play. And through that, the growth will happen, the ideas will happen, and you'll get a very clear sense then on, where do I want to go? Back to the boat metaphor, getting your compass set. Like right now, it's as though our compasses are, until you actually get to actually build some muscle in something, you don't really know where you're going to go. So just use this as like, oh, you know what? Low expectations. I want to have fun. I want to like learn something. I want to gain some insights and whatever. And so what we would do is just make it as easy as possible for you to get started, which is what we do with Callcast. And then we can show you how to, the building blocks of putting together podcast artwork, which can be super simple. How to do some really lightweight editing if you need to do editing at all. I don't even think, if you're just beginning out of gate, for a challenge like this, I don't even think you need to worry about editing. It's more just having a conversation and posting it live for people, or yourself, and posting it up on the RSS feed and connecting it to Apple or Spotify if you want to go that far. But like you mentioned, this could just be an exercise for yourself, just to practice getting out there, putting stuff, recording, and then just kind of all the self-reflective pieces that come with that, and the self-learning that comes from that.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, it's just the same as recording a voice note and then uploading it to Google Drive. It's literally like, that easy. So I just don't want anything in your head about anything being complicated. Anyone can really do it.
Yeah, and as you know, I'm here. Anyone who reaches out and says, hey, I'm doing Stacey's challenge, will you talk with me through certain components? I'm always here to work with anybody to help them, build out their idea. I just like seeing people learning new things and challenging themselves and growing. So for me, that's the delight.
Yeah, I love it. So cool. Well then, yeah. So my plans are with the challenge. The first challenge is going to be a smaller one. I'm making it only specific to that Peloton group that I'm in. And then a couple friends that are like, no, let me do it. So they'll do it too. And that'll be kind of like the baby one. And then I have a bigger one that I'm going to probably do after it's like tested a little bit more. And so we'll see which one, like if we could do it from the first one, that would be great in terms of setting up that page. And then if we, or it would be available for the big one, but I think that would be great. I think that'd be really amazing. And it'd be a great way to hold people accountable, you know, if they want that to be able to, and again, for me, the number one thing that I want people to get out of it is just freaking get out of your house and talk to people. Like if that is your, like, if that is the only thing that comes from this, then that is exactly what I like would envision as a purpose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, the other thing that, if what you can get out of this is just starting conversations with people, right? Just growing and saying hi and having that human connection. And then back to the energy that you will get from having that moment of human connection with specifically someone you didn't know. And it felt like, oh my God, I got to talk to someone I don't know, because we can close ourselves off. But just saying hi. And then even if it's hi and, I hope you have a wonderful day, and walking away, building on top of that, and if this podcast leads to being able to say hi and meet somebody and then have a 30-minute conversation like we just did and get to explore some ideas because you ask questions, you're going to see the growth opportunity you get from that. And each one will build on the next one until that moment comes where maybe you're out and somebody gives you those butterflies and you're like, oh, wow, I really want, you know what? I am going to go say hi this time. And next thing you know, you've built a relationship with somebody that many times before you might have just sheepishly walked away or not had the courage to go say hi. And so that's what I would say. I hope we could build towards that through a process like this. That would be really neat.
That was really well said. I love that. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it and everything that you do. You're always available when I need help. And sometimes I just get excited about something I'm doing and like you're the one that I always want to send it to.
No, I love it. I love it. And I think it's really special. And yeah, I'm excited. And what you're doing here is awesome. And it's watching you kind of grab the bull by the horns and just say, I'm doing this. And I'm going to make something. And then now it's like your universe just gets bigger and bigger, and watching you pull people together and create challenges to help support other people. It's just, you see all the beauty that comes from it. So it's like a blooming rose that just kind of is there to make everyone's life more special.
So cool. Thank you so much, Adam.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.